Hello, pretty peoples. It's part 3, of Day 9 Daily number 558, where we learn to be a better gamer. And things are awesome because Goswser's awesome. In the break, I asked a fairly simple question. What units would you replenish with, and why, in this circumstance? What would be our big goal here? Obviously, I have a deep appreciation for the fact that the storm lightning is still going on, despite the fact that we are paused. But in my eyes, this is what I'm seeing. We have a good bit of cash in the bank. See, we got this. So this would encourage me to go infestors just based upon resource distribution. Just based upon that. However, given that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get 2 bases up, maybe 3, and given that I don't think that my opponent is actually going to live through this thing over here, I would probably not go for the efficient and slow infester. I would probably just go Ling, Ultra, Hydra, some composition of that in between. Because if we look, this expansion should be the most critical one for Protoss. This, he hasn't even really mined from yet. This he shouldn't have. This should... well, this we killed. So really, Protoss is kind of having to stay defensive. We have vulnerabilities we can exploit here if we have a fast enough army. And given that this vulnerable spot, as it relates to these 2 bases, is kind of wide open, I mean, infestors wouldn't really be able to exploit this, right? Infestors are better in those big direct engagements, but I want to be able to harass up here, shove Lings in his base over here, maybe even get some units up here, and I think that the Ultra Ling composition is going to be real nice for that. So we, oh yeah, Hydralisk, another thing that I think makes sense, because we have these Broodlords out. If all of these died, I would probably almost certainly not be trying to remake a lot of them, but, you know, given that this is still alive, I like Hydralisk, the mobile choice. Any combination of Lings, Hydras, and Infestors, depending on bringing the noise. I like. Obviously, we're seeing some of the net result of having Broodlords. 3 Stalkers nearly kill off an expansion and force us to pull back. We don't want that. More Stalkers come this way. We don't want that. You know, this is, again, one of these issues of building the Corruptors. Because before I was like, alright, well, we already know we're building Corruptors. But had we just built nothing but Lings and Hydras, we would have certainly been able to deal with this sort of pressure. And of course, this follow-up play. This makes sense from a tactical perspective. But again, we're almost guaranteed now to lose this base and this base, because we didn't replenish with something mobile, and we continue to drill with something that's more focused. So now all of a sudden, infestors do make sense. Because this base is super dead. This base is super dead. We're likely only going to be focused on our Broodlord Infestor army. So, you know, it might look a little bit manic of Goswser to suddenly build a bunch of Hydralisks when he had all these bases up, and then suddenly to go Infestors. It's very easy to go, why didn't he build the Infestors before? But that's a little bit of what we just talked about, right? Well, we have lots of bases, and I think we're going to win this army, so given that, we just need to make sure that we can cover all of our bases, literally. So given that, you can see Infestors are very bad at dealing with these sorts of counterattacks. Hydralisks are pretty decent at dealing with that, thanks to the speed upgrade that they have. And Goswser is kind of forced to apply pressure here. And there's not really that much that HasuObs can do, but suddenly, in a matter of seconds, Goswser is losing all of these bases and is very fortunate that this one hasn't been scouted. I'd probably say at this point, Goswser is looking in good condition to win it anyways, because there's either a brand new expansion or no expansion, and that's it. But I'd still like to come back to this, what I feel is a very critical moment, right? Come on, replay, work with me. I still feel that this moment is very critical, back at the 27-minute mark, where Goswser is in good condition up here, getting pressured a little bit down here, and then moves a large force down to this location, abandoning defense of 1, 2, 3 important bases, and goes for this push. This is, I think, critical moment 1, where this attack's happening, and then so that causes this to occur. And then shortly thereafter, was it at 30? Looks like it's at 31 minutes. So here's this critical 1 moment where we move here and we end up losing 4 key bases. Wow! 4 key bases to kill 1 key base and 1 to not key base. And then this push at 31, I think, is the second critical defining sort of whoopsie-daisies moment for Goswser. All these battles end up occurring here, and this, I think, is prime moment for Ling Ultra, maybe some Hydra in there. Because it's so mobile and we're almost guaranteed to kill this off. However, building the Corruptors that are Corruptors are obviously only going to defend the Broodlords. So even though they're fast, they don't really count. Because they're only... You're not just going to rush back and defend your expansion by corrupting a bunch of stuff. So literally, this in the instant choice means that we need units to defend this, and we don't have them. We need units to defend this attack. We don't have them. And we need, hell, anything to defend this Zealot and Dark Templar that end up swinging here. And we don't have them. So those 2 key moments bring us to this 3rd key moment, where I feel that after this crazy psychotic series of exchanges, Goswser, I think, is correct in going, well, I guess I better go Infestor because, I mean, I don't even have an economy, really. So, I mean, I have to be lean and mean with my money, and also, I'm pretty much all in on this force. Ling Ultra will not bolster the overall strength of this as much as Infestors will, and since we're all in on that, alright, sure. Clean, easy cut back from Goswser. His Expo gets spotted, and then Goswser goes, Ermagerd detertion. And there it is. So, although this game is crazy and, like, amazing and kind of pans out excellently, I think we can see a series of rad moves, awesome moves, really cool, unbelievable, by Goswser, back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And then literally 2 key moments almost cost him the game. So, yeah. So, right now, Goswser doesn't have a base here. HasuObs still trying to hang on strong. Abduct in all the things. Abduct has got to be the awesomest ability ever. And I would like to just give some perspective on this game. Goswser playing against, in my eyes, one of the best late-game decision-making and best defensive Protosses, period, has gotten himself into this position despite 2 fairly significant blunders without Infestors. What do you think about that? No Infestors. I mean, I know some Infestors were there at the late game, but they just died really fast. But no Infestors. No Infestors. No Infestors. 2 key mistakes, and still in a winning position. This is really, really great. So I want to do a brief recap near the end of these movements, because yeah, I'm just going to let the rest of this game play out. So yeah, HasuObs actually finds this base and kills it off. We start to see some of the struggle with mobility yet again. I mean, Goswser's kind of boned in that spot, kind of had to move the Broodlords around to deal with that, but he's actually barely going to get revealed. Or almost going to get revealed, excuse me. And then he's going to rebuild his original base from scratch. He can build Zerglings for a little bit longer. Still puke and creep to make sure that it doesn't die. And then just scouting expansions with the Overseer Changeling. I think that is just a really nice move. Killing pylons now. When behind Dark Shrine, not this time. I don't know what those Zerglings were doing, but there's the good game. What a wonderful game. What a really, really wonderful game this was. I want to point out some key moments throughout the game. 9-minute mark, the first really awesome moment. Seeing, with this Overseer, this Phoenix, and then going, ah, I will not use the Spire, I will drone. Brrr, here comes the dronage. Dronage. Ah, dronage. So that was great. I think that was the first key moment in my eyes. The next one, I think, comes at the 13-minute mark. When Goswser, actually might even come earlier than that, when Goswser gets an infestation pit in order to go for a fast hive. Yeah, I guess it was 12-minute mark. Fast hive and hatchery. Why? Because he sees lots of Phoenix. Really no other way for pressure to be applied. This yields a strong mid-game composition of Hydra, Roach, with Vipers in order to reinforce everything. Which of course segues into a very powerful attack that, though it dies... Sorry, headphone users, I don't know why it's so loud. Even though this attack dies, it still served this critical purpose of denying a fourth and securing a fifth. As time went on, we saw the volume really increased like frickin' crazy. But we saw this army just have a solid lockdown, and in fact, this very solid army continued to have a lockdown, continued to deny things. This base, I actually think drones shouldn't have been transferred here. They should have been transferred up here. These bases are much safer. Really nice. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably say that this blunder here is about an 8. I mean, it can't be understated how important it is to have your army positioning relative to your bases be the most important consideration. Jesus, volume, what the hell? You know, I don't know why it keeps auto-equalizing. I've disabled auto-equalize in every one of my programs. I'm something. Screw this. This, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably about an 8. We have a lot of money in the bank. We have a great army, but we're sacrificing 4 bases just due to the fact that our army is in a not ideal spot. And this is an even more expansion to take out anyways than these two. Nearly loses Goswser the game. Has a few other problems, like with the replenishment. Like we saw 31 minutes. And still manages to hold down strong. So now I'd love to take some questions, because I think that game was magnifique. Let's see here. Prometheus0099 says, Day 9, you were mentioning the Viper was an interesting transition over the Infestor, but I mostly saw them fly around doing nothing. Could you explain what was good about choosing them? Absolutely. Let's consider the mix of units that the Protoss will have from 14 to 15 minutes in that period of time. That's good coffee. What was the question? What was I answering? Yes, Vipers. Why are they good? Because think about what Protoss has in the 14 to 15 minute period. He is generally going to be having a death ball-like army rounding out. He will have Colossus, Stalkers, maybe some Zealot Sentry in there. It will be largely Colossus-centric, especially if he's trying to get maxed quickly and do a timing push. So, Roach Hydra sucks against this force because the Colossus and the force fields are so good. But with Infestors abducting the Colossus and Blinding Cloud disabling all of the Stalkers, suddenly we have a very, I don't want to say, it doesn't mean Roach Hydra will then crush the Stalker Colossus army, but it will absolutely drive it back. So that's really the big thing. That, you know, this army will come up, and ordinarily we'd be like, oh shit, and we just lose all our stuff, and then be like, ah, Broodlords, please. But now we can just like abduct. Excuse me, with the Vipers can abduct, the Vipers can do Blinding Cloud, we'll pick off a Colossus or two, and then they'll retreat. So that's one scenario in that 14, 15, 16 minute range that makes Hydra, Roach, Viper so key. The other one is if he's begun incorporating Templar or other units. This means his overall army strength is down because he's doing different types of tech, and we're still at the 14, 15 minute mark. Again, if we're at 15 minutes, he can either have a pretty big Colossus Stalker force or a slightly less big army and Templar thrown in there as well. So that means the Vipers will be useless. Not useless. The Vipers will not be as useful. But that's okay because we don't really need the Vipers. Our Roach Hydra is already in such large quantity that we're good. So that was the sort of corner case that we ended up seeing there. I'm trying to think if there's like another analogy for that. Actually, here's an analogy that I think is exactly, not exactly, but basically equivalent to that. It's kind of like a lot of Marine Marauder with medevac pushes against Protoss. If he doesn't have any force fields, you're going to do some serious killing damage, and you don't even need the medevacs. But you get them because in case he does have the force fields, you can sort of lift up and pop around anyways. And it can only really help a little bit. Let's get a little bit more. Savily Pirate says, Day 9, is there any point in which Ultralisk ought to be incorporated in this form of play, especially considering Blinding Cloud, courtesy of the Viper? Absolutely. I think that when you're on a sort of mid-base count, like 4 going up to 5 and 6, as you're going up to 5 and 6, the Broodlords are great because you have this nice, strong thing going on. But here's a magnificent aspect of HOTS. Oh, such a magnificent aspect of HOTS. There are many strategies where we can build way more bases than our opponent, have a way better economy than our opponent, and crush him with inefficient armies that are so big it doesn't matter. Macro style. So in other words, I like the idea of using Broodlords as a stepping stone to get to overwhelming Zergling Ultra Hydra forces. The little one, TLO, has been doing this quite successfully, where we just get all this map control, and then all of a sudden it's our 6 or 7 base versus his 3 to 4 base, and we just keep drilling and just rolling in with units, just rolling in. We can't replenish with Broodlords; they're too slow to build and too slow to maneuver, and then we just rebuild Ultra Ling and just roll in again, and rebuild Ultra Ling and roll in again, and it's so damn hard to deal with. And I really hope that pans out well for you when you do it. Drodo asks how to get his company to participate in AHGL. Go to ahgl.tv, and on there you can send in questions of how to sign up for Season 4. Season 3 is actually midway, but Season 4 will be happening at the start of 2014. Let's take one more question. Mr. Prodigious says, Day 9, what are some of the moves Hasu could have used to capitalize on Ghostly users' mistakes better and possibly come out farther ahead and possibly win. I think that it would be this moment right here. Right around this moment when HasuObs has basically been defending quite well again. Goswser's army will always have more overall resources lost, but that's fine. He still gets ahead in terms of bases. But I think it's here as we see that in the unit count, we do have a lot of warp gates, but we're favoring a transition to Stargate. I think that the Stargate transition to go up to carriers is very Wings of Liberty-esque because it's really good against Infestor Broodlord. And I think that some Tempests and Void Rays are good, but still I think that the ground units are, like the gateway units, are really key. A lot of these Void Rays getting produced. All these getting killed off. Speed up, speed up, speed up, speed up. Speed up, speed up. This is great. Expanding here I think is frickin' genius. That's awesome. But I do feel like there was a moment here during this battle where there could have been like the warp in of a billion stalkers, and yet there was not. So I actually want to see what went on here. So here was all the battling going on, you know, like stalkers just flooding in right there. I think would have just locked this bad boy down. I mean, nothing's really being spent, and here's the stalkers finally morphing in. Actually, where are the stalkers? Yeah, I think these stalkers could have been morphed in a bit earlier to just do the last little bits of damage to kill this off. I actually think that could have very, very happened. Like, very, 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 very. Or alternatively, no, yeah, I actually think that was totally it, yeah. I think this is a nice force, but it just needed more reinforcement at the Battle of 31 Minutes. I'm going to re-look at that one more time just to make sure that I agree with myself. I've said it as sort of a theory, but just to re-investigate. So we see a lot of those key units get pulled back. And yeah, I mean, right here, we can morph in 15 stalkers and blink them under here. Corruptors, even though they're, you know, killing off a lot of our big dudes, all the Corruptors are just here to support the Broodlords, and there's really not much in the way of those. I think the storms could have gone down largely on the Broodlords. Yeah, I'm just not seeing a lot of warp inning. Let me speed it up here. Looking around, do I think there should have been more? Yeah, you know, I'm not a fan with emergency mode Void Rays. I think it's almost always stronger to flood with just gateway units and not try to worry about getting this power army. Like, in a position where there's Broodlords out of position, I would want to just build units, kill these off. I actually think that Hasu can still pull this off. But there's just not a lot of Blink Stalkers being produced. Some Stormers and Blink Stalkers and some Zealots I think could rock in here, and these Corruptors wouldn't be that useful. There are probably some points earlier, but that's the one that I really feel where Hasu just capitalized really strongly on the spot and could have done maybe a little bit more to crush. For the time being, I am going to go to a break because I'm not done here. I'm not done here at all. In fact, let me open up this key thing. No, this is actually not what I want to capture. You know what I want to show you? This. The After Hours Gaming League will be coming up in 3 to 5 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the AHGL. Thank you for watching the daily. Feel free to also go over to twitch.tv/itmejp because State of the Game is on. We'll be back in a few short bits with the After Hours Gaming League where Intel will take on Epic. Yes, see you then.